By now, you may have heard of this ridiculous new study from Harvard that came out that all the enemies of the proper human diet have jumped on. They have released a study that claims that eating red meat in general, will increase your chances of giving you type 2 diabetes. That's news to all the people in the carnivore space who discovered they were pre-diabetic or had full-blown diabetes and corrected the problem with a carnivore or a ketogenic diet. And let me know in the comments if you are one of those people or if you know someone personally who is one who did that. This is a study from Harvard, the same people who a few years ago brought you a study saying that the carnivore diet will cure a whole host of problems. Media didn't pick up on that one nearly to the degree they are here. And we're going to go over this story in brief in case you aren't familiar with it, including my answer to it for why this is a stupid study and why this study is just on shaky grounds and how you could actually conduct such a study, if you're being honest with yourself, and how to do it, but it's a much harder version of a study to do, especially for ethics reasons, but also involves a lot more complicated math. But if you're not familiar with the story, here's an example of the propaganda. Headline from vegan propaganda outlet Veg News. Eat red meat regularly? Your risk of type 2 diabetes is 62% higher, Harvard study says. A new study has found that people who eat red meat regularly have a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Headlines like that one have appeared all across the mainstream media in the last week, which is weird because 2 years ago, Harvard famously published their study showing that carnivore diets cured a whole lot of problems. I'm sure you remember that. Everybody in the carnivore space talked about it if they had a channel at the time. Mainstream media touched on it a little bit, but that was about it. This one is going all over the place. I've seen from much more mainstream places than Veg News. I wanted to use them because at least they're much more honest and upfront about how they're a mission-driven organization, and I can appreciate their honesty. Whereas, if you get, Yahoo News telling you that this stuff, why are they reporting on it for one, and why are they promoting it to like the front page of their news? It's very strange when they do that, especially when it's, pure propaganda, as we'll see. So, from the article, quote, people who eat red meat may have an increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes, according to a new study led by researchers from Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. The study, recently published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, suggests that even moderate consumption of red meat can heighten the risk of this widespread metabolic disorder. The study, led by first author Xiao Zhu, a postdoctoral research fellow in the Department of Nutrition, builds on prior research indicating a potential link between red meat consumption and type 2 diabetes. What sets this study apart is its analysis of a large cohort of participants who were tracked over an extended period, adding a heightened level of certainty to the association. End quote. Couple things here. First, you notice how the headline actually said that it will or can, your risk of type 2 diabetes is 62% higher. That's what the headline said. It's a very definitive statement versus what they say here, which is a lot of qualified language of may have an increased risk, can do this, suggests that. That kind of language, more responsible language. Of course, headlines like that are meant to get you to click on that link, right? But and here's one of the problems with it. And no, it's not that they tracked the usual ways that they do these things. That's a problem by itself, but we've talked about those problems endlessly. The problem here was pointed out by Food Lies on Instagram, which is a great Instagram account if you're not following them. Food.lies. Follow that account. They're a good one to follow. They call red meat any food that has red meat in it. For example, Food Lies lampooned this on Instagram using this image. They call lasagna red meat. They call sandwiches red meat. Look, pre-carnivore, pre-keto days, I loved lasagna. I loved sandwiches. In fact, weirdly, I remember 3 or 4 months into keto, the keto diet where I lost a ton of weight and was almost at my best health before going carnivore. I remember weirdly, like 3 months in, having a craving for a sandwich, which is weird because, yeah, sandwiches were good, but they were never something I ever pined for before. But you see the problem here. Sandwiches and lasagna are called red meat. Those things are mostly carbohydrates, at least in terms of their calories. I mean, yeah, you can go to like a burger joint and get a hamburger with tons of extra patties on it, And that is a sandwich where most of the calories will come from the protein and the fat. But most normal sandwiches are going to get their fat, their caloric density from the bread and from the mayonnaise and other sugary or fatty, plant-based fats, especially condiments they put on them. Why are they calling these red meat? Because they're lazy and because they literally don't get it. And so here's how you would fix this study. If you want to really do a study tracking links between diet and type 2 diabetes, you need what's called a multivariate study. And if you don't know what a multivariate study is, we'll just use one from Adobe, which sells some top-line statistics crunching software for grad students, researchers, professionals who do multivariate analysis for their jobs. They give us a good definition here. Multivariate analysis, or MVA, involves evaluating multiple variables, more than two, to identify any possible association among them. A key takeaway: multivariate analysis offers a more complete examination of data by looking at all possible independent variables and their relationships to one another. All right, so when I was in grad school, I got my PhD in public policy relating to environmental policy and political science. Okay, so I did multivariate analysis. I hated it. I was more of a theorist more than anything else, but I did do it because it required you to do it. And you can have studies that track dozens of variables, and you need software like this when you're getting into that high level of research to do it. And you could start pulling out, there are people who publish studies based on one study. They publish multiple papers based on one study for years, based on one multivariate analysis study, where they start testing the different relationships in their variables, and they realize they're seeing an interesting correlation on this question and on this question and on that question. It's a better way to do this kind of research. And the way they would do it, basic research design, would be to say, okay, you have your control group is the standard American diet. You tell them to just eat whatever they want, don't change anything as long as they agree not to go on any kind of a real diet. Just track what you eat and let us know. And that's it. And you do it for whatever amount of time. Yes, it's self-reporting, so you're going to have those, that's going to account for your sort of, your failure rate on that in the analysis, but the software can deal with that, but that's your control group. These are people who just live a normal life, right? And then you have people who do every kind of diet imaginable, whether they're vegans or whatever. Yeah, it's self-reporting. Maybe you can get them to live in an area for 6 weeks or 2 months. Again, not enough time, but good luck getting anybody to live in a controlled environment for even that long, unless they're in the prison system or something. Yes, there are ethics problems with this, but you would need to have a long-term study of a wide swath of the population, including carnivores and vegans and everything in between, with the standard American diet as your control group, and then you can start crunching the variable numbers and find what leads to type 2 diabetes. I guarantee you, it's not going to be the red meat. It's going to be plants, plant oils, carbohydrates, and, of course, ultra-processed foods. We know the answer to this question. They're not going to fool anybody. Well, I'd say they're not going to fool anybody, but there are people who, we've all met them, who think they're making a better choice for their health when they go to the store and buy those Beyond patties, or they hit the drive-thru and buy the fake meat alternatives. They think they're doing themselves a favor, when in reality, the biggest favor they can do for themselves is to cut out the refined carbs, eat more red meat, and just eat till they're satisfied, not, eat tens of thousands of calories of milkshakes in a sitting. That's the propaganda piece, folks. Wonder what this effect is going to have, beyond being a cudgel for the anti-meat propagandists to use on us for a few months, especially as we head into the holidays. Let me know what you think of this in the comments, please. What other ways would you have of doing a real study on this? Let me know in the comments. And hit like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. So to sharing this on social media, that helps too. I'm Anthony Stine, the Practical Carnivore. Thanks for tuning in.